Good. I'm good. Good morning to you.
How are you? I love your shirt.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I had, I was digging through my t-shirts this morning. I was like, I have to wear something appropriate. So it's either crit hits or it's like the grumpy cat sitting behind the GM screen. And it's like, no, let's go old school right here. I like your background.
Why, thank you. I forgot I had that on.
That's appropriate though. So what do you like? I guess no spoilers, but I've watched the show obviously from last night. I know you have. What do you think?
Um, I really like it. I think there's a lot more depth than we know with it. I think they're trying to set up some stuff, and I feel a little at a disadvantage because I was talking with Jack about it a little bit the other day, and I know he's seen all the, or I think all of Rebels, the animated series, and I haven't seen that stuff, but I know they're drawing pretty heavily from it. So I think there's some things I'm missing, but I find it interesting how they're connecting back to some stuff from like old school expanded universe with things like Dark Saber and so
You're
forth.
telling me, man. I mean, honestly, he's so like. Obviously, we're sitting next to each other. We're watching the show. I'm not a Star Wars nerd like he is, like at all. I don't watch the animated series. I don't do any of that. And so he's sitting there next to me, right? And he goes, "Whoo! I hope that is who I think it is." And I'm like,
Yes.
"Oh, okay." And he knows who the character is. He knows the backstory. He knows all of it. And he's so after the show, and he never does spoilers, but then after the show, he wrote, "So this is who this person is. This is the show that she was in, and this is the sword that she's referring to." I'm like, okay.
Yep.
But it's good because it gives me all of the information that I need, right? Without me having to actually go off and get it.
Yeah. I do the same thing with my wife because I learned early on that I was overloading her. I would like drop things throughout the movie or the show, which is terrible to do unless you have the background. So my friends and I can do that, but she wouldn't want any of that with anything we would watch. So then afterwards, I'd say, "Okay, do you have any questions with anything about that? It seemed a little weird. Do you want me to?" And then leave it up to her. And if she'd say, "Oh yeah, can you?" Then I go, "Well, how deep do you want me to go?"
But it's always good. It's always good to have someone like around who knows this stuff, and it doesn't matter if it's Star Wars or something else, right? It's like, and then if you've got an interested audience, they can sort of sit there and go, "So, okay, what was the deal with this?" And if you go, "Well, allow me to break up my tome of knowledge here."
I thought it was really cute when the child was bonding with the baby fish amphibian creature thing afterwards after he ate all the other ones.
Yeah, no, totally right. I mean, I was sitting there going, "Oh, please don't eat it. Please don't eat it." But no, it was a total bonding. It was like he saw this birth. It's like he's looking at the egg and then the little sort of thing comes out. And it's like, it's almost like he saw this birth. It was great. It was absolutely great. There's a lot of the visuals too in the show that I just think that they have got on freaking point. And I don't even know what the Star Wars brand is, but it's like anytime you look at a ship or a sea vessel and go, Star Wars, you know they're doing something right.
Absolutely. I think they've hit it out of the park with this one. They just, I don't know, they're doing everything right.
Apparently, that's Favreau, like all over. Hey, Princess Strega's here. Apparently, that's just Favreau all over. I'm getting this from Jack, but like Favreau is this incredible Star Wars nerd, has been since early childhood. And so when he picked this up, it's just like he knows the lore, he knows it inside and out, and I think he's bringing that into the show.
Yeah, they're doing a really good job with it.
Hello, Princess Darling. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Absolutely fantastic. Do you mind if I lean forward and look to see what sort of geekiness you've got behind you on the shelf?
Hold on, just a tick.
Yeah. Gotta square the room away. So, Princess, we were talking about just last night's Mandalorian. Have you seen it or no?
No, I still need to get Disney Plus, and that's not going to happen until next year.
Then we will utter no spoilers, other than to say it is worth it. It is definitely worth it. It was Jonathan's background there that sort of prompted the discussion. But we were talking about how just on brand the show is, like just the visuals and everything about it. You know, I said something about Star Wars that is iconic in sound and visuals. It's like you don't even need to hear one line uttered. You don't need like to see a stormtrooper. You don't need to see Darth Vader. You can see just a building or a vehicle of some type and go, Star Wars. And a little bit like, honestly, if we're going to be fair, Star Trek has that too, right?
True.
And this show, Princess, captures it. It just in every way. You'll see different vehicles. Sometimes they're familiar, sometimes they're completely new. But every single time you go, Star Wars. And it feels good because of it.
That's cool.
So what's everyone been up to? Like, what have we got going on hobby-wise here? Princess, I know you've been doing a lot of mapping recently. And Jonathan, I know you just seem to have miniature projects coming out of the woodwork.
Unfortunately.
And you won't know me because I share it a lot. I've got way too many freaking projects, guys. I got way too many projects. Yeah, I've got projects I haven't even shared with you yet. What have you got going on?
It's actually, I'm looking over at my, it's a mess over there, at part of my studio. So I'm working on another video series for Dwarven Forge, although I haven't finished the first one, where I'm painting some more stuff. It's going to be the base of some city walls. So they have these narrow passages, and then you can put these battlements on top that they were like original things that they used to sell. So you can kind of do like a more entry level sort of city wall without spending a bucket of money on their castle stuff.
Now you're a little bit of a Dwarven Forge nut, aren't you?
I am lately. I didn't used to be. And it's hard to say no when they're willing to just send me stuff and they're just such nice people.
Oh, they just send you stuff? Okay. Well, that helps, doesn't it?
I mean, some stuff I pay for. So
Review
like the first, I'm sorry?
Review copies?
Yeah. So over the years, I've luckily become very friendly with Stefan Pokorny, who's the founder of Dwarven Forge.
And he's a good human being.
He's wonderful. I love that guy.
Yeah.
And then I started to get to know some of the other individuals there. Nate Taylor, who kind of takes over all the day-to-day stuff, and I'm starting to get to know some of their online people and some of their sculptors and stuff. And so every so often, I'll either get an email from them saying, hey, we'd like some input about this thing we're going to do, or would you like to do whatever? And then so sometimes I reach out to them about things I'd like to do. But I think it was like 3 years ago, they really surprised me, and they sent me about $1,000 worth of stuff just to look at and do work with, and they were really happy with it. So I don't know. I'm very grateful that they're willing to do such a thing.
What do you think? This might be a weird question now. I don't own any Dwarven Forge. I might have a little bit that I somehow acquired somewhere along the line. And I never got into it. I don't know about you two, but I never got into it just because storage room, right? And it takes me long enough just to set up a dungeon with paper pieces, never mind like 3D. So what I know, and I acknowledge it, Dwarven Forge is hugely popular. Why? Is it the visual elements? Is it something else? Or does it start to tap into the Lego collecting quality?
So that's an interesting question. And they just did a big survey among customers and backers. And I think they're trying to figure that kind of thing out. But the number one thing that people responded with about why they get Dwarven Forge stuff is to use it for role-playing games, that they want to be able to have that 3D atmosphere so that they can actually more easily see and show people what's happening in the game. But other really big ones I was surprised by, people just like to collect it. So it's the Lego thing. They just like to collect, they like to build with it. And then another really big one, and this is one for me, which is kind of how I validate spending any money on it, because I'm not really a role player, is my kids love to play with it.
Okay.
So they build, they do whatever, and it's as long as you don't get the resin, it's indestructible. Basically, the Dwarven Forge people have driven trucks over their pieces, and the stuff hasn't broke.
Wow, I didn't know that.
There's a video. I'll find a video of the video and I'll share it sometime.
So it's not just regular resin; it's something else.
No, it's some sort of like extra durable, heavy plastic kind of thing that they do, because they sculpt in resin. Actually, they sculpt in. Is it called monster clay? Monster?
Yeah, it's some kind of clay. I've watched videos of him doing it.
and then they cast it locally, like in-house, I guess, in resin and paint it up for their whatevers. But then the factory in China, I guess it is, they do it either in they do like a resin for the resin line or limited edition stuff, or they do this proprietary plastic thingy.
Wow. Okay.
It's really, really good stuff. It's gonna
They-
last longer than we're all alive.
Have they done any of their dice in this material?
No, so it's funny actually. I'm looking at one of the dice right here, and I'm not using my good camera, although I can switch it over. So this dice, let me turn off my stupid background. Is actually, they have another company that they work with that does special dice for them, and I can't remember the name of the company, but these are like really heavy duty D20s made out of metal, and they're just really durable stuff. So I know people love it for gaming. There we go. So we'll clip out. So you can see it's like really good quality made. So they don't have these all the time, actually.
So you're saying that's metal? Did you say?
Yeah, this is solid metal.
It almost
and
looks like it's iron.
it might be. And then for the 20 is of course their symbol.
Oh, that's
Okay.
And so they have different ones coming out for their new Kickstarter and everything. And people love the dice. I was surprised to get one last time around, but people absolutely love the dice.
I'm kind of with Princess here. I'm kind of curious to see if they ever do one out of this durable plastic, because that'd be kind of something.
That would be something. And I don't know why they haven't actually. I know you don't always get as fine a detail in this plastic stuff. So that might be why. Maybe the numbers wouldn't show as well.
I always remember I actually broke out a metal die at ReaperCon, I guess last year now, feels a long time ago. And the GM just like shipwrecks, you know, only because he had one of those vinyl mats down. And he was like, "Oh no, don't roll that on my mat, don't roll that on my mat." And I'm like, "Really? It's just a die?" And he was just, and I own some metal dice. My best set of metal dice, Princess got for me.
As a
Oh,
matter of fact.
Oh, do you?
This is the same set.
Same set.
Oh,
Yours is
that's
green. I think
nice.
mine's blue, right?
No, yours are green.
Oh,
I'm
my
pretty sure of
green.
it.
I misremember. Oh, I'm sure my age. Yeah, and they're beautiful. Honestly, they're the most beautiful metal dice I've ever handled.
Actually, that's my first set. I bought those back in May of last year, and I want more metal dice. I'll say that much.
They feel good, right? They're just.
There's a nice heft to them.
What is it about dice that we love so much? I mean, what is it? It's like, okay, we all collect miniatures, right? We collect miniatures, and in WargamingRecon sense, he collects Dwarf and Forge too, and trees and flock. But like, what is it about dice that is tapping into us as humans and gamers, where it's just, I need more, I need more, I need more. Oh, they're nice. I'm getting them. What is it?
It's the collectability. It goes back to our parents, you know, when they were young and they collected records. It's just that thing that we have inside is that we want to collect something. And when we find that something, it makes us happy. We want more of it.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that. I bought Jack. Is it Wormwood? Is that the name of the company?
yeah.
And they're really sort of high end, and they do it out of like a tree that they pulled out of an Irish bog that's 3,000 years old. I bought Jack a set of those. I don't think he's ever rolled them because they're like worth more than our house type of thing, you know. But it's like there is a collectability, isn't there? I think you're right, Princess, with that, because it's not that I want to roll these dice. It's like, now I own them. Now I covet them. So I think you're 100% right on that.
And the same thing goes for whatever we collect, because I have dreams where my collection gets destroyed and I'm just in utter dismay over it. My RPG books, my movies, whatever it is. If it gets destroyed, I'm like, fuck.
It's funny that both of you are talking about collecting dice, because that's one thing I could never understand, how people just like have buckets of dice and they collect more and more and more of them. And I have trouble. I know I have some, but I always have trouble tracking dice down for a game. I'm the weirdo.
Yeah, well, and you're also a slightly different game because you're not so hot on the tabletop stuff, right? The tabletop role-playing stuff.
Yeah, I haven't really played much of any of that.
You're way more war game in the world, and I'm a little bit of an anomaly because I sit right between the two. I do as much role-playing and wargaming and love both passionately, but I think there is my particular passion in collecting miniatures. Lots of miniatures. That's my thing. That's my weakness.
Princess, is that something that you're really into as well, collecting minis?
It's something I'd like to get into, but I don't think I can paint minis really that well because I've got some fat fingers. So
Hey, you and me both.
well, short and stubby, I guess I could say, but I don't think I do well at painting them. I do have a few of the Wizards of the Coast minis that came out for
Nice.
I think 3rd or 4th edition. So
Their latest stuff has been good, high quality too. I've got to have it. Like they went through a phase, the Wizards of the Coast miniatures, where they were like this cheap plastic and they were kind of horrible. But their latest stuff has really been on point, I think.
Yeah, very much.
but I'm more into collecting RPG books, movies, some weird stuff that I don't know why I collect it, like glass coffee containers. I don't know why, but I love collecting those things.
It brings you joy.
And that's ultimately the only thing that matters, isn't it?
Nothing wrong with that.
I think it's the shape of them because there's some like they come like this and then they have like a lip at the top that's like this. So this geometrics, I guess I'm attracted to geometrics.
Hey, that's cool.
I think, but also if you think about like some of your maps that you draw and the style of maps that you draw, Princess, they're very much the same way. I mean, it's the precision, right? And it's the lines. Your style of mapping, I could never do. It's I think inherent within you.
You know what? You say that, but I think you could because I look at the way you map and I'm like, well, okay, I get myself a new computer, I get myself a tablet, I can draw the same way Alyssa maps. I could do exactly the same way you do it, and I'm sure I'd be damn good at it too.
Well, we've got to get you at it then, don't we? Get you shooting out some maps here. Get you in the library, come on. We're going to expand. We're going to do the Elizabethan stable here of cartographers.
I think that's a really good compliment to you, Alyssa, actually, that you're inspiring other people.
Well, thank you. You know, you've been on my stream now, I think, enough when once a month, once a quarter, I get really passionate. And Princess has been there a couple of times now, where I'll just suddenly start going off about maps and what they should be conveying. And if that enthusiasm can possibly pass through to anyone else, and Jonathan, I know it's done the same with you. You picked up a pen and been doodling while we've been mapping. Then that's what I want. I mean, honestly, whether it be mapping or painting miniatures or just the hobby in general, and I know you relate to this because your entire podcast is about this. I want people to be not only comfortable with the hobby, I want them to feel passionate about it. I want them to get joy out of it. And it doesn't matter what facet of the hobby it is. And I want them to feel comfortable with exploring it further. You know, it's like Princess here says, well, you know, I don't know whether I could paint miniatures. Well, maybe not as good as some of the pros out in Europe. None of us can. But I mean, honestly, anyone that picks up a brush and just goes at a miniature, you're doing it right, you know, and I don't care what the results are. So yeah, if I can impart some interest, like in maps or anything else, then great. Because
you definitely have, because I felt that energy, and that's what led me to work on my home plans or doodling. I mean, I remember one stream of yours where I was actually drawing this map of New Atlantis, and that was while I was watching one of your streams. So
nice. That's what it's all about to me. That's what it's all about. It's like we're this part of our hobby, whether it be wargaming, tabletop role playing, and the miniatures and the dice. If you think about just the multiple facets of, you know, Jonathan, you and I were talking earlier about brushes and stuff, and you've seen my post on Facebook where, you know, I've actually broke out the Black 3.0. There's all of these little micro facets of our various hobbies, right? And I think if we can feel good and proud of having these hobbies, and any part of it, whether even if it's just collecting it or getting joy of having the books, that's okay by me. Because you know what? The rest of the world are not doing it right. You know, the rest of the world are fighting amongst each other. They're railing. And look at us. We're just sitting, we're chilling, we're happy, we get joy in the things that we've got. Now imagine if the whole world can do that. It's like, settle down, home skillet, break out the player's handbook and just chill for a while. You know, life's too freaking short. So I'm all about that. I really am. We get one shot. You know what I'm saying? One shot at life. Why would I not want everyone to enjoy it, myself included? That's why I've got that collection of books over there, you know, because every single one, when I walk past them and I look at them, they make me smile inside. And
I still want to see that tour, Alyssa.
Yeah, you know, I need to actually just grab the phone and walk around, and I'll do it. I'll do it. Part of it is over here. I've got some of the miniatures in the 2 glass cabinets, but then further back out of shot, there's a deep wooden cabinet with glass shelves and shit. But the lighting isn't particularly brilliant, and the shelves go like this deep. So part of it is like, here you go, princess. No, you can see nothing. So I think if I can get the lighting right, I'll absolutely show you. Plus, honestly, and I think Jonathan might relate to this, I've got miniatures next to my bed in plastic tubs that are now actually, there's a cat bed on top of them, you know, they're part of the furniture. I've got miniatures on Jack's side of the bed underneath the window, also in black. I've got miniatures underneath the bed. I've got miniatures underneath the coffee table, on the mantelpiece, downstairs. I've got stuff so all over. But I think if I could do a fun tour of, here you go, princess, now we're going downstairs, you know, I will do it. If I can get my head wrapped around how, I'm going to do it for you, I promise.
Well, I have this light that's behind my desk, while you can see me very well. It's basically like a videographer's light where you can just move it to wherever you want it. Maybe look into something like that. Yeah. I'll send you a link later.
Yeah, do it. Actually, that would be a great idea. That would be a great idea. And then I'll do it. I'll do like a little mobile tour. And maybe we'll do a little bit of editing to cut out some of, like, you know, clothes on the floor or whatever. But I'll do a little mobile tour, and I'll show you. I'll show you. Back here is my main gaming area. Normally we've got a table set up back there, but we took the table down because we haven't gamed all year, which makes me really sad in my soul, you know.
It's just not the same as being at the table with other people.
No. I mean, I've won a few games this year on virtually, and they've gone well. I enjoyed the experience of GMing quite a bit, but it's not the same as being at the table. Oh, there's that lamp you were talking about.
This with a Joby Gorilla Pod, super easy for what you want to do. You just bend the legs, you can hold it as you're going around, have your phone in the other hand.
Is it battery driven?
Yep, batteries, or you can plug it in. Comes with battery. I think it's
okay.
Whatever I gave them the link. I think it's like $40 or whatever. Super affordable. I mean, it's not the best light in the world. And Princess, I'm sure you have much better ones because I know you're into photography. But LEDs, good LED coverage, and on the back.
What's a plastic thing for? What's that about?
So this just kind of diffuses it. Yeah.
Oh.
And then there's an orange one
somewhere. Okay, this is going to sound stupid.
No stupid questions.
Princess, you're big on photography, and
let me clarify this. People think I'm big on photography. I am a hobbyist photographer. I have invested no serious money into photography.
Well, let's put it this way.
You're interested in it.
You're interested and have done way more of it than I have in my entire life.
Me too.
Disclaimer, by the way, I almost, for the first half of my life, was the exact opposite of you, Princess, when it comes to photography. What's the opposite of a hobbyist? I actually hated photography. I never wanted to be in front of a camera my entire life. And it was around 30 years of age where I actually broke that. But for the first half of my life, I would hold the camera. I would never be in front of it. So you're definitely way more into photography than I am. So I'm going to ask you a stupid question. Or a question. What is diffusing? What does that do?
That would be
like if I had a miniature with and without that diffuser, and I took a photo, what would the difference be?
Oh, shadows, pretty much. Where you place the light and how you take the photo depends on the angle from what you're shooting, how you want to capture the image. You know, if you want a really good bright photo, then you have like multiple light sources, one from above, two from the side. That's the best you can do.
With diffusing. So if I didn't diffuse the light, God, I'm going out of focus right there. What the hell's my camera doing? But if I didn't diffuse the light, I'd have shadows all over there.
Yes, yes.
I see.
It'd be harsher too, right? So you might get a little bit of an odd look.
So preferably, like you would have the diffuser on it. Why would you not diffuse?
That's a great question.
Maybe something to reason.
Because no, I have the answer to this. It's because the harshness of the light can affect the quality of the photo. So you want to use the diffuser in order to get the best quality photo that you can get.
Okay. Now, is that why then you see a lot of whether it be Twitch streamers or YouTubers, and they've got their little studio area set up, and they have these big screens, like the almost transparent screens, semi-transparent, I guess, and their lighting is going through that. It's diffusing.
A lot of photographers on Instagram have this like photo box, and you have like a light source either coming from behind or on top or in front of it, and then the box pretty much is like one color, so that you can offset what you're shooting and really accentuate the color of what you're wanting to shoot, offsetting that with just the blandness of one other color.
I actually have one of those boxes, by the way. It's like a little sort of mobile one, and you can break it out and sort of set it up. And you'll see it. Sometimes I'll take photos of my miniatures, and they definitely look crisper and sharper, and the colors are much more vibrant, if anything, when I do it. But it's like I've got two lights that came with it. And honestly, you'd laugh if you saw me with it, because I'm going, that kind of looks good, I guess. But now, you saying get from the sides and get from behind, or no, you said the sides and above is the best angle. I'm sitting there thinking, I need a third light. All right. Because they come with little tripods, and I'm literally going, I think this looks okay. I'll take a photograph, I guess. What about you, Jonathan? I mean, you're obviously in front of the camera a lot. What type of things do you think about when it comes to lighting and cameras and stuff?
So I tend to think more practical things, like, do I have anything in my teeth? And stupid stuff like that.
No, that's a consideration, man. That is a consideration. I swear, when I start a stream, if I have a snack before or something, or if Princess gets me one during the stream, I'm sitting there thinking, oh God, is it gonna show? At least I have the advantage of I'm like this big in the corner, right? But you're like this. You're right out there.
And you bring up something, Alyssa, that I'd like to mention. Maybe you could increase the size of your box by maybe 25%.
Oh, I'd love that.
I could do that. Do that. Honestly, you can give me feedback, by the way, anytime. Part of me is like, if I make my box bigger, I'm going to cover stuff. And I've had people comment saying, can you move this to the other side? Because I want to see this and this and this. And I'm like, okay, I guess that makes sense. But yeah, I mean, I have no problem making myself that little bit bigger. We'll start in the very next stream.
Do you have a Stream Deck?
I do. I unplugged it because I didn't use it. But I actually do want a good excuse to start using it, because I actually want to be able to. It's less, I think, relevant when you're just drawing a map, right? Because I think there's this constant, that's what's going on. But I actually want to start taking the channel in a direction where, I'm actually painting on camera more. And so we can switch camera angles to either something on a turntable, or like something from above, or just me holding something up, or just the camera pointing at something. I want to be able to flick angles and stuff and do the cat cam too for Princess. That's important. That's honestly why I got the Stream Deck too, so I can actually quickly switch between cameras. I've just not had a reason to do this yet. But I actually, honestly, you know, we would, Jonathan, this is a little bit before your time, but there was a stream, I want to say about 6 months ago, maybe 9 months ago, where I started imitating, and this is going to do this weird circle back to answering the question, okay? But I started doing this weird sock puppet and thing on camera. See, Princess is laughing already. And everyone was just like, we were in such a good mood. And I'm doing Romans. I'm doing Roman sock puppets. Oh, I am Centurion Socrates. And like people were just freaking laughing their asses off. And so we started saying that has to be a segment. That has to be something we do. And I'll come back to that.
Oh man, I love that.
But then what I want to be able to do is hit like a button on the Stream Deck, and it's just the sock puppets with a green screen behind them, right? Like a modern version of Punch and Judy show, just going at it. And I want different types of sock puppets. Now it's got nothing to do with mapping, but that doesn't matter. And have like a little emperor coming in, or a little woman with the hairstyle and flicking her hair. And it would be awesome with a little backdrop of different types of backdrops. I want to do that. And that would be an awesome reason to have the green screen. And the Stream Deck. I want to have a good reason to use both. So that answers the question, I think.
Alyssa, to interject, with the Stream Deck, you can also do animated GIFs. So you just press a button, and on stream, it'll display and show the animated GIF.
That's an interesting thing. So what would I use that for? Like give me. Can you use that in a sentence? Like, what would I use that for?
Well, if someone like says follows you or subscribes to you, you can then press the button and it would say like, thanks for subscribing. Like a little Roman legionnaire would pop up and be like, have a flag that says, thank you for following or thank you for subscribing.
We do have animated GIFs and music and sound, I should say, when someone does a follow or a raid or a subscribe. We do that. But it's interesting to know that I can actually hit a button and still get that type of effect, maybe for other things too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it goes just above and beyond that too. I mean, you could have an animated GIF of anything you want, so long as you're not violating Twitch rules.
Right. So the next time that like WargamingRecon like buys me a bean, I can have an image of me kicking him into the pit, Sparta style.
Or here's an even better idea: you could have an animated GIF of beans raining down.
Ah, no, yeah. Okay, I see where that's going. Yeah. So I bought. It's probably downstairs right now. It was like an entry-level Stream Deck. It's probably got 24 buttons on it, maybe something like that. But okay, no, I like this. I like this conversation. This gives me some kind of reason to maybe break it back out again and actually be able to sort of click buttons and have it rain beans.
Yeah, and the best thing about it too is you can press one button and that button is like a folder. It'll open up new options on your Stream Deck, opening it up for new commands.
I don't know a whole lot about what you can do with a Stream Deck. I mean, obviously I've seen them used and I know they're very useful. Is it possible to have it so that it can activate different layouts for you, Alyssa?
100%.
So that way, like you could do it. So you do a different layout where when you're mapping, the map is big as you've had it, or with you a little bit larger. But then if you're going to be eating a bean or doing something else, you press a button and then you either go full screen or you go much bigger for your reaction or for whatever you do.
Yes, that is possible. I have a friend, Sean, named Zaran Isarak on Twitch, streams almost every day. He does that, so I know very much well that that's possible.
Yeah, it is. Yes, 100%. Because the way that works is you've got your Streamlabs OBS software or whatever software you're using for streaming. In that software, you can set up scenes, and that is my default scene. Let's say is my main monitor with an insert of my camera with an overlay of the little sort of frame around me with my name over the top. That's a scene, including the audio and the mic pickup and you hearing through this. All of that is one scene. Well, in like the Stream Deck, you can just say, give me a different scene. So any scene that you set up can be easily and quickly flicked between them. So yes, I like that idea actually, especially for the bean thing stuff. Like where now maybe I become much bigger in the center of the screen. I don't go, okay, let's eat this thing. Okay, yeah, we could do that. I think that's very doable.
That would be great, because to actually see the minute details of your face reacting to the bean.
Your joy in my misery, by the way, is getting noted.
The last one you did where you said, this is disgusting. I'm like,
I know, like I picked up my computer and I'm looking really close.
Okay, done. All right, both of you, done. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. I can definitely make that happen. And that would be a good reason for me to actually start using the Stream Deck that I bought 2 years ago.
I can't tell you how many times I've watched that clip of you eating that bean saying, I don't know what's going on in my mouth. Just
there were one or two of those things where they're truly disgusting. Like the one where I'm eating grass. Okay, that's one thing. That's not a pleasant taste, but it's like, okay, I'm eating grass, whatever. But there's one or two where it's like, oh no, this is just not meant to be something that is in my mouth right now. And I tend to pull a lot of those. I mean, come on, how many beans have I pulled? And I've had one or two good ones.
Is Jack pranking you? Has he removed the good beans? I'm serious.
Well, actually, he bought some more beans, right? He's going to top up the jar. We'll do that on the next stream. But the ones that he's bought right now are more 50-50s and more bads. So it's like, let's get some goods in here, because I'm not convinced the 50-50s are really 50-50. No way. I mean, if I went to a casino right now, apparently I would have lost my house. You know what I'm saying? My luck is so bad right now. I'm pulling beans like I roll dice. It's just terrible.
Tell me about it.
And getting back to the dice, that reminds me, because I wanted to say this earlier, but I have this big crayon. It's hollow in the middle, but it's clear it has clear center. I have this goal of wanting to fill that completely up with plastic dice.
Nice. Hold on.
So, Princess, I have to tell you, I have to give you a big compliment.
Yeah.
So when you shared the schematics of the house that you've been working on, I was looking at it, and for a moment, I thought you were sharing a schematic of a house that you found in an architectural book or magazine.
Actually, I did. I found it online, and I just modified it to suit my needs.
Oh, it's so superbly done. And I was looking at it, and in my head, I could picture what this house looked like and where it might be. And it just, I was looking at it, I'm thinking, so what's it like to live here? And I'm imagining the daily lives of everyone. And just, I don't know, it came to life for me. And I just thought it was so clearly identified and beautifully drawn and beautifully made. I was just really awestruck by it. And I keep on looking back at it. So I think you did a fantastic job.
She is exceptionally skilled at it, like to the point where, I want to actually do a house extension. I feel like I could contact Princess and say, can you draw the plans for this?
I could do a SketchUp for you, Alyssa, but above and beyond that, you'd have to present that to someone who has CAD software to actually do the better details of it.
Well, and I know from the point of view that there's probably I can't probably file with the city something that my best friend drew. I get that, Princess. But from a quality of the work that you do, from the quality of the precision, I'm going to echo what Jonathan's saying. I mean, it's up there.
Yeah, that comes back to you and your mapping. You say, when I say to you, like, I could just imagine walking down the road of this city and just picking an apple and then going down to the pier and catching a fish for dinner. So he's saying to me what I'm saying to you.
And it's appreciated. It's appreciated. This is what I went off to, by the way, sort of get. So this is not a big, huge pencil by any stretch. But these are all of my old school dice. This is not my dice collection that I actively use. But in here, I have a whole bunch of the actual original plastics and stuff, the ones that you fill in with crayons and things. This is like, what am I going to do with this jar? I don't know, I'll fill it with dice. So that's my equivalent of your pencil.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I don't even. One day I actually had a friend sort all of these by color, little rows. You know, like those sand art things that you get. Yeah, he sat there one day at a game, like sorting them all out. But then one day someone was like, "Oh, I don't have my dice set." Well, here you go. Like, pick out of there.
That's funny.
I like your shirt, by the way, Alyssa. That's really cool.
Oh, thank you. This is actually this goes back to Facebook. And there was years and years and years ago, there was a group called the Old School Role Players. I think they're still probably out there. I left for whatever reasons, but there was a really wonderful woman in that group called Wanda. And she was like, I've designed this shirt. Does anyone want one? So I actually bought one for my entire group. So when we do get together, everyone turns up with these. And there's a running joke now that because always someone forgets, right? You know, there's always someone at the table goes, oh, shit, I forgot my shirt. But everyone else is in it. When everyone wears the shirt, there's going to be a TPK. That's the running gag that we've got right now. Because that's what's typically happened. So we always want someone that doesn't remember. But yeah, these are great shirts. She designed it and everything. And I just think that they just capture who we are just perfectly. So, Jonathan, you were talking about, like, you've got some great brushes you want to share.
Oh, yeah. So, it's really going to sound like I'm on their payroll. I'm not, although I wouldn't say no to money from them. But so part of my recent video things involved me, and I actually bought these, but they're Picorni paint brushes. And Stefan has chosen these very specifically because of his artistic background. They're all natural bristles, pony hair, but the one in particular that I absolutely love is this dry brush, which I have to say is the best dry brush I've ever used in my life. And it's a size 12, great bristles, very soft.
I'll have to check that out. I know it sounds weird talking about dry brushes, but you know, I like the Artist Opus line. And they do dry brushes too. So these are my equivalents here. Like,
nice.
Let me just put them off camera a little bit. There we go.
Nice.
Interesting that these are a lot shorter.
I noticed that.
Than yours.
And I'm not sure why this is so long, because I'm not used to them being this long. Other than it's a size 12. What I've also done is I buy makeup brushes.
Oh, that's an idea.
And then I get a set I can show you. But when they come, my wife unfortunately gets excited thinking I buy makeup brushes for her, which is something I would do. But I'm like, no, these are for me, for my toys. But you can get them for a good price. And again, different sizes, really small, big, or whatever. But they're just so nice and fluffy.
I'd never even thought about makeup brushes, but that actually is a really good idea.
I've had some good luck.
Princess, I don't. If you know this, then please just stop me. You know, you mentioned that you don't really sort of paint too much earlier. The whole thing about sort of dry brushing is, of course, very little paint on the brush. And then you take most of it off and then just dab or brush very roughly over the miniature or whatever. And because there's very little paint on the brush, it kind of just catches the creases, like the highlights, and nothing else because it's not flowing anywhere. And you get this almost immediate highlight. So Jonathan, for example, within painting stone, he could paint the whole thing very dark gray or black and dry brush and a very light gray or white and get an instant stone effect, instant. The problem is it fucks your brushes up because it's basically you just go all over what you're doing. And so, you know, you get brushes that are basically made just for like that rough action here. And so makeup brush would actually work really, really well. If you use any other brush, it just screws them up.
It feels nice too. So
win-win. I like that idea. And I assume that they're cheaper.
They are. Do you know what? I'll put a link in the Discord to these because these were dirt cheap. They're like 50 brushes in here, and I gave some to my wife. Obviously, this is not going to have any use for me with minis.
Right, but for your stonework and everything, when you're doing a lot of like the Dwarven Forge, 100%, yeah.
Yeah, so it comes in handy. And the thing I'm working on now, and Princess, you could, I 100% believe in you that you can paint stuff if you so choose to give a try. No pressure from me, but if I can do it, anyone can do it. And so with the Dwarven Forge stuff, which I find it's easier to paint their stuff than a mini because it's smaller, it comes like this. That's such poorly lit. Sorry, I didn't set up all my lights for this.
Well, and is it Reaper? Is it Reaper or Games Workshop? Someone has done a line. Oh, Citadel. Oh, that's nice. You see that's
So
nice,
this is how it comes out. This is with accent color on the stones. And then when it's done, it'll be something like this. I know you're getting washed out, but
this looks good. Looks good.
so
man.
it's just dry brushed, and that's it, and you're done. Super easy to do, and you can 100%. Anyone can 100% do it.
You know who is actually a really good painter but doesn't want to? Jack. Like, he is actually a good painter. Like, I sat him down once, and he sat down and he started. And now, first time ever painting in his entire life, and his line work is on point. His hand is steady. The highlights are there. And I'm like, God damn, this is your first painted miniature in your entire life, and this is what you're coming up with. And he hated it. He put it down halfway through, and he's like, I'm bored. And he's never touched it since. I'm like, the miniatures we could paint together. And he's like, don't wanna. I'm like, oh no.
Oh, that's funny.
Like, he's got like a whole bunch of what is the race that Chewbacca is? What is Chewbacca?
Wookiee.
Wookiee, of course he is. Of course he is. He has a whole bunch of Wookiees, you know, like miniatures, and they would paint so easily. Talking about dry brushing, I mean, like, oh my god, and they've just been sitting there for years. And I'm like, come on, that would be a great project to do. It'd be so easy. And even the stormtroopers, they're white with black. Come on, man. And he won't do it. So
I think he heard you.
Which? Oh, Jack.
Talking about how you won't paint the Wookiees.
I like that t-shirt.
Actually, so talk about cheap brushes. And Princess, not to bore you, but for Jonathan, this is amazing. They're called 50 paint brushes. The brand is like One. Smart choice makes you happy. So Chinese. That's them.
Okay.
One. And there's literally 50 brushes in here. But I want to show you something. Like, someone mentioned this on the Reaper painting group, and I was like, no.
Are they synthetic?
No.
They must be, right?
Yeah, put it in front of me. They've got this tip on them that is super fine. And like, it was one of the Reaper guys. It was like, so I was running a paint workshop, and I hand out these. And at the end of the workshop, every single one comes back, and the nib is still just as good. I'm like, no. They're so ridiculously cheap. They're like 50 cents each in a pack or something like that. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't tend to use, you know me, I love my Artis Opus. But these actually, honestly, for cheap brushes, are the best I've ever encountered. The point on them is ridiculous. I feel like I could skewer someone like a spear.
What part of that is the nib?
What part is the nib?
Yeah, on the paintbrush. Where's the nib? No boy.
Well, let me see. So it would be right up there, right? Yeah. Am I understanding the question?
Yeah, I'm just asking, what's the nib?
The bit at the top, the bush nib. To my understanding,
like with a pen, right?
Yes. Did I say the word nib or something?
You did.
See, that's a subconscious thing. I didn't even realize I said it. Yeah, just like a pen nib. It's the tippity top of the actual brush itself. And typically, I mean, depending on what you're painting, right, you're going to look for different things in it. It's a little bit like when you're drawing, Princess, or anything like that. you're looking for different types of pen or pencils for different results. Honestly, paintbrushes are exactly the same, in my humble opinion. You know, I've got some paintbrushes that are like just a few pixels, a few pixels, look at me, a few brushes in width or a few hairs in width. And actually, I don't tend to use them as much nowadays because they don't tend to hold much paint on them because they're so fine. Something that actually has a almost a longer brush or head almost on it, will actually hold the paint better. Like more can get in there. So yeah. So and then the nib. I always like my nibs or the tip of the brush. I suppose should be a better phrase. The tip of the brush. I like personally just to be very nicely pointed and a little firm, and it wants to come back to a point all of the time. Just like using a good pencil or a good pen, you know, because if you get a cheap brush, what happens is this lovely, wonderful nib that you're painting on a miniature starts to do this, you know, or worse, honestly, for me, I don't know about Jonathan, worse, you'll get one fucking bristle that will go like this.
I did some painting in high school, so I am aware of that.
Right. And so you're doing this, and you've got this one little guy go, hello, and like doing this off to one side. And what the hell, man? Come on. And you can't, when I was younger, I used to try and cut those things off.
Oh, I do.
And
yeah.
you just scoop the brush. It's like, well, look, it's just a bristle going off to one side. I can snip that, brush ruined. I don't know why. And talking of which, the red grass brushes were like that right out of the box. The red grass brushes were shit out of the box. I swear, I took those things out. They had a good point on them. I dipped them in paint and they went, bleh. I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see where this is going.
You mean the one brush you need?
Oh, the one brush. Yeah, you need no other brush. In fact, you know what? I'm tempted to actually go onto their website. I'm going to go to their website. I'm going to read this out to Princess right here. Princess, you are an artist, okay? I think you will appreciate just the bullshit that I'm about to read out when I read out their description of their brush.
God.
We have a little bit of a thing about red grass because they're so fucking pretentious, and I'm sorry if swearing offends you. All right, here we go.
Really are.
Here we go. These guys love themselves. They love themselves. Paint all of your miniatures with only 2 brushes. We created the best brushes for miniature painting. With their fine tips and large bellies, I've got a large belly right here, they will cover all your painting needs with high quality Kalinsky hair. They are so versatile that you will need only 2 of them. 00 for top position and size 2. There's a big gap between them, by the way. And size 2 for all the rest. The perfect hair for enthusiastic hobbyists. 2 brushes, 2 sizes. That's all you need for everything.
Bullshit.
Yeah. 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 It's like saying, oh, you do watercolors? Here's 1 brush. You won't need anything else. It's like, back off. No, that's not how it works. Yeah. And the problem, we're going to bash on that for a moment, so indulge us, because Jonathan and I have a thing about the red grass, and he's holding their wet palette. It's like they did a Kickstarter basically for this wet palette that in concept was brilliant. So the whole thing about a wet palette is you've got basically a tray, you've got some kind of sponge, you've got some kind of tissue over the top, like a greaseproof paper type of thing. You moisten the sponge underneath. You can put paint on the greaseproof paper, so to speak, and the paint stays wet. It doesn't soak through too much that it does just starts to run, but it stays wet. Then you could seal the container and theory come back a week later and your paints are still there. Keeps things preserved for a while. Any hobbyist that paints would benefit from something like this. Redgrass did a Kickstarter that had the same language about it. The sponge that will never go moldy, papers that you never need to replace, paints that will never go dry, the perfect ever sealing vacuum sealed, blah 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 blah. And Jonathan got his and the magnets fell out. It was like the quality just was not there. And their customer service was, well, you could get some super glue and stick them back in. You know, and it's like, yeah, Jonathan has not been a fan since.
So I hate this. I hate this so much. But so I just opened the wet palette after keeping it sealed with stuff in it for 2 years. It's moist and there's no mold.
Well, no, and so here's the deal. I actually think right now I've got like 3 wet palettes, and it's ironically the best one of all of them. It didn't live up to the Kickstarter hype because they were talking about 1 sponge, like 1 paper. I think, you know, they were talking about a hinged lid and it would snap shut, and they couldn't deliver. They couldn't get the quality right, a rubber freaking band to keep it shut. So it's not the quality that they said, but ironically, it's still, for some reason, the best one that I own. I'm actually a big, huge Scale 75 fan. I love Scale 75 stuff. I love the miniatures. I love the paints a huge amount. And they have this wet palette, which I don't know where it is right now because I kind of tossed it to one side. That, honest to God, if you looked at it, you would think it was the best thing ever. It's a shame I can't find it. I'll take pictures of it later. And it is genuinely, it is hinged. It comes down. It snaps shut. There's a little clip to snap it shut. When you open it, 1/2 is all recessed for your paints, little paint pots in 1/2. The other half is actually got a little insert, plastic lid that inserts into it over the sponge. Everything about it is freaking awesome. And it's crap. It's just crap. It doesn't work. It's like you put your paint on there, you get that sponge, you get that tissue and everything else, and you seal it up and you come back to it just hours later and all the moisture is soaked through, and the paint just runs all over the place. So visually, I think it's what Redgrass wanted to do, but performance-wise, it's way worse. Redgrass is the best one.
You see, it's funny for me, Redgrass is my worst. I get much better luck out of my Predator Press P3.
I don't have one of those.
And this isn't great, but this will last me a week if I need to, and I come back and it's perfectly fine. I can't leave it for 2 years like the Redgrass one, but that's fine. Or my homemade one.
But don't you want it to be left for 2 years? Don't you want it to be able to last as long as possible?
No, because if I have it in there for 2 years, it means I'm still working on the same project, and that's a problem.
Well, yeah, but that's you, not the Redgrass palette. I mean, the fact that the Redgrass palette can keep on going is pretty...
No, I mean, that's impressive, but I also think it's irrelevant because if you're using it as a painter, you're probably not going to come back and need the same exact paints in 2 years.
You know, you and I really need to do a little podcast on this subject of...
I think we do.
Just this subject of, like, even homemade ones.
This one has lasted 3 years.
What do you do, freeze that?
Nope. Just left it in my basement. No mold. It's not yucky or anything.
How do you preserve it? I mean, I don't get it.
It's sealed shut. Made sure to seal it shut. So there's air in there, but like nothing else is getting in. It's just...
Are you using like a special water or anything, or just water out the faucet?
It's just water out of my faucet. Although you could use like a distilled water or something like that. It depends on what your water quality is like.
I know friends that use distilled water on their wet palettes. I don't. It's impressive that it's gone a year or so with no mold.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing this mainly for, I want to see how long it would last. And then I forgot about it. Is what it is.
And the paint hasn't dried?
No, the paint's still usable.
Wow.
So it's there. I'll clean it out and probably disinfect it and get rid of it. But that cost me, let's see, I got 3 of the plastic totes, 2 sponges, and reams of parchment paper for $3. So even if it doesn't last...
That's the word I was looking for. I couldn't think of the word parchment paper.
I mean, like, even if this didn't last forever, the sponge you're going to want to get rid of because the sponges are gross. But you can disinfect the plastic. The parchment paper, you're not going to keep forever anyway. So really, for $3, you can't go wrong. And some of it's reusable if things went worse.
No, it's very cool. It's very cool.
I did hear with the Redgrass, though, I think people made out much better with the cheaper one than with the more expensive one. Yeah. which I find odd. If you're going to get something right, you would think it'd be the one that you make people pay more for.
No, I've heard the same thing, that the smaller one was actually the better one of the two. And I've generally been okay with the larger one, but if the smaller one was better, then that's absolutely, honestly fantastic. I would try the P3 one. I would be interested in getting one of those. Only because I have this weird, like, fascination. Well, it probably goes back into our collecting thing a little bit earlier, right? It's like, I kind of want to get one just to have it and to try it. And I just love all painting supplies in general. So that would be a great excuse just to grab one.
For you, it probably won't replace your Red Grass Games one. But for me, with the amount of painting I do and the frequency, it works well enough.
That's
and
very
it's
cool.
cheaper, much cheaper. So that kind of offsets it for me.
So, Princess, I know that you don't paint or anything, and you're way more into, let's say, your movie collection and such. Do you ever, I mean, do you GM? Do you run? Do you play? What is your thing that, well, from a tabletop perspective, you've got the books back there, you've got the dice. Do you collect the miniatures? Do you don't really sort of do too much in the miniature front? Is it just really about the books for you?
It's about creating for me. It's not about playing. It's not about GMing. I recently tried to play 3 sessions of 5th edition, and believe me, it was fun, but it wasn't my cup of tea. And I think that I've realized that I'm past the point of wanting to play and wanting to GM. I just want to create.
Okay. Now, are you going to do anything with these creations? Like publicly distribute them? Or just hoard them like a dragon?
I missed that. My connection was a little unstable there.
Yeah, no, I think we've had a little bit. So I guess I was asking, what are you going to do anything with these creations of yours? Is it just you just like to create, or do you have a goal of one day releasing them?
I mean, I'd like to, but I get just more joy out of doing it, regardless of whether or not I'm going to publish.
That's I can actually respect that. I used to write and create a lot when I was younger. It's very time consuming. So I can understand.
I have 2.
Oh, go ahead.
I have 2 projects that I'm working on, though, that I'd like to publish, but I don't know if I'm going to. I'm working on my own RPG engine, which is by 20 Derivative. I'm not sure if you heard of it, but Rogue Genius Games is doing Core Finder. It's a derivative of Pathfinder First Edition.
Core Finder. Okay.
It's going to be it's going to be able to be used for multiple genres, not just fantasy. Modern and fantasy are the first 2 that are coming out. Fantasy is the first one, then modern, and I don't know what's above and beyond that, but I'm following it with keen interest because Pathfinder First Edition is my system of choice. So, but these 2 projects I'm working on, it's sort of like Core Finder in a way. I have my own way of doing skills. I don't want to get into the nitty gritty details of it because I want to keep that on the back burner so that if and when I do publish that, no one else has taken this idea and run with it. But I'm working on this project called Lore 20. So that's my system project. And the other primary project is called Malatea. And it kind of takes Mask of the Red Death, but puts it on the industrial fantasy side.
Okay.
And I'd actually love to commission you for Malatea for drawing a map for it.
I'm sure we could work something out. I'm sure we could. So let me ask you a question. And Jonathan, my apologies for this one because I know that you have not played Pathfinder, but I want to get Princess's opinion here. So we've got edition 3, we've got edition 3.5. Pathfinder jumps in and goes, hold on. The system's really just not that broken. Here's our version. And they came out with a rule set that I think really took the world by storm. And a lot of people got on board with Pathfinder when it first launched. So now, obviously, they've moved on a little bit. They've got Pathfinder 2. And now we've got Core Finder, which suggests that someone's going, hold on. You know, like Pathfinder went, whoa, Dungeons and Dragons, the system's not broken. We just need to do this. Let's keep it simple. It suggests to me that someone else has gone, hold on, Pathfinder. The system's not broken. Let's just take this. What is it? Go ahead.
I want to interject because Pathfinder is broken.
Well, and that was going to be my question. What is working with the core finder and what's broken about it, in your opinion?
See, now 5th edition and Pathfinder 2nd edition get this right. It's the amount of type of bonuses and the escalation of attack or base attack bonus progression, as well as the progression of everything else that just stacks bonuses. That is what's broken. So that is what Core Finder is fixing. It's going to take Pathfinder and make it Pathfinder 1st edition, I should say, and fix that brokenness while maintaining true to what Pathfinder 1st edition feel is. Because Pathfinder 2nd edition goes sideways with just the amount of customization, and that's what I hate about it. Every single level that you gain in a class, you have to pick a class feat, and then eventually there's just your general feats, your skill feats that are separate from normal feats. So any given level, you could gain 3 feats. And I think that's just ridiculous. I don't want any part of it.
Yeah, and I didn't know that because I don't own Pathfinder 2. But yeah, it's that type of thing that actually honestly started turning me off. And even the Pathfinder 1, because you started getting all of these splat books and all of these possible ways of adding extra bonuses into your character. And in the end, you could just become so ridiculously powerful that it was getting a little bit silly. And Jonathan, from our perspective of wargaming, it would be a little bit like having Black Powder, which is a nice, simple rule set. It's very clean. But Black Powder does introduce the possibility of a general adding bonuses, or a sub-general having bonuses, or a unit having its own bonuses based upon qualities. If they then took that and said, this is not optional, you start to get a system that's very clean and simple, and gets a little bit more complex because now I'm tracking these extra things on top, and these extra things on top actually makes this unit even more powerful. If you then took that one stage further and a stage further and a stage further, you could now have this one unit become God. And I think Pathfinder definitely started to go in that direction because they started to release so many splat books on top. It's like every single adventure that they released in the Pathfinder series just started to add extra stuff on the top of it. But then Pathfinder 2, from what Princess is saying, just took it all the way in. And that, yeah, I don't like that.
Just customization overload. They get the core of it right with the rolling mechanics and the bonuses, but the customization is just wrong. I like how 5th edition works in theory, except it's not enough customization. Pathfinder 2nd edition, way too much customization. And the thing to remember about Pathfinder 1st edition, all those splat books, they're just supplements. You don't have to use them.
This is a really, really stupid question. So
what did you say to me earlier? There are no stupid questions.
Well, except for the ones I ask, because those are inherently dumb. So I've always been operating under the belief, based off what others told me who know more about this than I do, but clearly I'm guessing not enough, that Pathfinder and D&D 3.5 are the same thing. Is that not true?
It's actually close, but not entirely accurate. It is Pathfinder 1st edition is the spiritual successor to D&D 3.5.
Okay. So like if you were playing D&D 3.5 and instead of going to 4.0, and you didn't want to go and do all that.
I'll put it this way. It's very easy to take the Pathfinder classes and just use them with D&D 3.5.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you could just lift the classes alone and you'd be fine.
Okay.
That
makes more sense to me.
Almost identical. They're very, very, very similar.
Yes.
Very similar. Then 4 goes a completely different direction, and Pathfinder 2 goes in a different direction. But 3.5 and Pathfinder, very, very, very similar.
Okay.
Now, Princess, remind me, because it's been a while now, 3.5, was it the transition from 3.5 to 4th that spawned Pathfinder?
Yes.
Okay.
Because so many people hated 4th edition with the way that it made miniatures so necessary that they didn't want anything to do with it. That plus the way the mechanics changed is a huge derivation, and the way it changed Ravenloft, I freaking hated that. Basically, in Ravenloft, you have the continent, and the continent being all these like domains being connected. However, the mists could be controlled by the Dark Lords, and the Dark Lord could say, well, okay, I'm closing off my domain. I don't want anyone leaving. So, in a way, 4th edition did that, except each domain was its own island of terror. So, you really couldn't leave regardless. So, the Dark Lord had no control over whether or not they allowed someone to leave. They just couldn't leave, period.
And that seems a dynamic that you didn't like, huh?
Yes, exactly.
I will be honest with you, with Ravenloft, I probably was playing that back in edition 2 era, and then I skipped it altogether until 5th edition, and that's the only time that I've actually become re-aware of it again. And so I didn't really even realize that changes had taken place between the two.
Yeah, there's a huge cosmological difference between, well, I say cosmological, but the cosmology between 4th edition and 3rd edition is huge.
Why would someone change a setting according to rules? Why would they do that?
I think it's more when Wizards of the Coast / TSR changed between 1st edition and 2nd edition. What they did was created a story element to move forward with a new set of rules. I don't think it was necessary, because from what Pathfinder 1st edition and 2nd edition have done, they haven't changed the setting. They just changed the rules. So it's more a standpoint of, well, let's change the setting to adapt to the rules.
You say, I'm not sure I like that, really. You know, you got your setting, and that's it's almost like I should be able to take Ravenloft as a concept and as a setting, and Ravenloft how it functions, and I should be able to play it in RuneQuest rules if I wanted to. You know, the setting should change.
As long as you're holding true to the core elements of Ravenloft, right, you can use it in any system regardless.
Right. So changing the setting because of the rules, yeah, I could see why that would be weird.
However, Ravenloft is a special case with that, because you have to like take into consideration how magic is diminished, how certain spells affect powers checks. Like if you cast a certain spell that's necromancy, that sways you towards evil. So you do too many evil acts, you become an NPC. You could eventually become a Dark Lord by doing it.
So this is, Jonathan, I don't know if you're familiar with the Ravenloft setting at all, or if it's just a name to you.
I've been getting really into learning more about Strahd and Barovia and that kind of stuff of late. So some of this is pinging for me.
Honestly, it was the only setting when I was playing, when I was much younger, that actually called out to me. It's like all of the other settings, while they're cool in concept or whatever, it was like, whatever, I'll do my own. But like I could take any element of Ravenloft and bring it into my own game, and the players couldn't tell the difference. It's like my GMing and Ravenloft writing were synonymous. You know, the horror sort of setting, that deep dark vibe that it's got. It was definitely something that I very much enjoyed. It's a cool concept, especially with what Princess is talking about. Yeah.
Jonathan, I highly recommend getting the novel I, Strahd, because that'll give you some good background on Strahd himself.
Okay, I've been reading some articles about him. There's this really good Reddit thread about running Curse of Strahd stuff and how to maybe modify it to make it so people don't wipe right away. And then I started reading, it's a young adult novel where it's an official Wizards of the Coast thing, where I guess they have a whole series where each novel, it's kind of like a choose your own adventure.
Oh, yeah.
So I started with the Curse of Strahd one where you're a cleric, I think it is. And just I don't know, I find it fascinating, and yet at the same time, all this kind of stuff terrifies me. I have a very low threshold for horror because my imagination goes crazy. But I think it's really fascinating about like the setting and how it kind of is inspired by the real world locations and cultures and stuff, and just how it all blends together. It's just, I don't know, it really interests me.
And I highly recommend getting Curse of Strahd revamped. Do not get the hardcover.
Yeah, I know that they have the new one coming out.
It's out.
Is it just the coffin set, or is
yes, get the coffin set. I know it's pricey, but it's worth it because you'll get the Taraka deck, which you're going to need if you want to run Curse of Strahd. Otherwise, if you get the hardcover, you're going to have to buy the Taraka deck separately, and you get some nice handouts. It's not, there's no hardcover in it, but it's all soft cover, but it's there for what you need. Plus, it fixes the inherent problems with the hardcover, and being that Wizards of the Coast is moving towards this direction of equality and fixing injustices within the system, the revamped coffin set is what you want.
So I work for a nearby town, and I work in their library. And one of the things that we've been doing a lot lately is promoting inclusivity and really trying to go against anti-racism and just trying to make sure that people understand that although we've always been this way, that like we're openly so. And so when I heard about the new Curse of Strahd revamp, which I know it's very controversial for quite a few people, I recommended that because we actually own a lot of D&D materials, so that people can borrow the games and the books and all that kind of stuff. And I recommended that we maybe quietly get rid of our existing Curse of Strahd book and buy a new one. And so I'm trying to nudge them to get the coffin set. And they don't want to spend, what is it, like $80, $100 on it or something?
Well, if you buy it on Amazon, I believe it's going for 65 right now. So
that's not bad. Yeah, and I mean, we get discounts and we're nonprofit, so we don't have to pay taxes and stuff because
so this is a library that has it.
Yeah. Alyssa, we have all sorts of stuff: video games, movies, board games. We have Gloomhaven that we're going to be adding to the collection. We get robots. We have $30,000 robots that people can access and use, and we just put in a 3D printer that's going to be getting worked on, and we have drones. And yeah, where I work is a very special place and very unique, but it happens when you're in a community.
So you're making these things accessible to people.
Yeah, people can come and they can borrow technology, you name it.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting.
I think we'll be moving to where people can borrow like laptops and stuff like that. We have high quality video cameras and digital cameras for stuff, and we are very well supported by the town, and a lot of private funding comes in.
That's good, because my recommendation is if you have a local gaming store, ask them if they'd be willing to donate Curse of Strahd, because gaming stores get a discount when they buy stuff, a very deep discount. So ask them if they want to donate.
Yeah, I know depending on the vendor we use, we get significant discounts on stuff as well, plus our tax-free status and all that kind of other stuff. So we get a lot of things that many places wouldn't have necessarily. Yeah, it's really quite amazing.
I have two questions. One, Jonathan, does your place accept donations? Like if I sent you some stuff?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, then we could talk about that offline. The other is, tell me about this coffin set, because now I actually want to go off and get it. What is it about the coffin set that is A, controversial, but B, more modern in its thinking? What because you two know something I don't.
Well, I think Jonathan would know more about than I would.
Well, so from what I understand, and obviously my knowledge of role-playing games is minimal, so please 100% jump in and correct me. But from what I understand, there's concerns with the way that certain groups of individuals are portrayed in Strahd. The Vistani, is that, am I using the correct name?
The gypsies or something?
Yes. And so that the way that they're portrayed in there is stereotypically negative views of gypsies. And I think that Wizards wanted to remove that bias from there. But the controversy, from what I understand, is there's a lot that these are not gypsies, although it may have been inspired by negative stereotypes, they are their own thing, and that if this that has an important element to the story, which I can't speak to because I have no knowledge of that. People I know and trust do, and I think there's some just concerns about how valid and necessary it is for this situation. Obviously, in other situations, individuals have different feelings about it. So I think there's a lot of dialogue and conflict about that.
So maybe, am I right in sort of saying, because I am familiar, obviously, with this setting. So, but I guess I glossed over or didn't, because I am a child of the 80s, okay? And there were so many things about the 80s that were just completely inappropriate. Looking back on them now, just shows and comedies where I'm like, oh, that would not exist today. So I don't want to say I have a thick skin, but it's like I have no perception for some of these things now. But so, but I can see, I can see that we take a real world people or culture, we bring them into our setting, and in this case, we want to be inspired by the gypsies. But then how I write about the gypsies can be extremely stereotypical.
Yeah.
And start maybe even playing up some of the negative aspects of our perceived, interpretation of their culture. If I then put that in a book, Wizards is trying to they're trying to revamp that.
Weed out that negative.
Yeah.
I could see that. I could understand that.
So like, I think there's things about portrayal of love of money, being untrustworthy, and aspects like that, that I think in particular are trying to be weeded out, so that it doesn't show that Wizards is saying travelers are untrustworthy people, that they're seedy or whatever. And then I think there was another big one, which I don't know why this would be controversial, because to me, it kind of, I think it's a good thing. I think there's a character in Strahd who maybe lost her leg, and that's some sort of pivotal story plot point. But so like she hides it and tries to like not let characters know that she's disabled. And so I think they're trying to make it in a more positive light, that you shouldn't be ashamed of if you have a disability, that kind of stuff. So I mean, that I don't quite understand. But the other, I'm told there's actual story developments and reasons for why those travelers in the story were portrayed the way they were. But I have no idea. I don't have an opinion on it.
I think so just from the point of view of discussion, I kind of understand why they want to take this character who was ashamed at losing her leg and like rewrite that in a more positive sort of way. I get that. I understand where they're thinking. But at the same time, I think we're at this point in history where we're looking at what needs to be seriously changed and rewritten and be a little bit more empathic. But there is also a point. There is a point where we could say this character is handicapped and this character is actually embarrassed that she's lost her leg and wants to hide it. And I think from a character perspective, that's okay. But we're not at a point in life, in our history, where we can say, no, it's okay for this character to feel that way. It's like, no, we can't do that. So I feel like that is one where maybe we can get to a certain point and still write about, being handicapped in some capacity. This dude had his arm bitten off by a dragon, but then still be able to tell the story of this particular person, without, I don't know, offending folks, I suppose. Because, we could line up 50 wounded people in an RPG setting. This guy had his leg bitten off by a shark. This guy was fireballed and is horribly scarred from it. There's a multitude of possible things that could happen. And I think if we're going to be honest, each individual character, our characters and personalities in our fantasy world, in our fictional world, I should say, would react to that in completely different ways. What's that film? God, Princess, I'm going to need your help on this.
Who's in it?
July the 4th or July. Was it a Tom Cruise film? Was it Tom Cruise?
Independence Day?
No, it's the one where one of the characters is actually in a wheelchair, and he's very angry at the world because of it.
Is that Born on the 4th of July?
Thank you. Born on the 4th of July. I knew July 4th or something was in there. Born on the 4th of July. So there's a character that is handicapped because of events in his life, who's extremely angry with the world. But now are we entering into an era where we say we can't write a character like that because it portrays all handicapped people as angry? I think some are, but in that just personalities in general are extremely varied and deep, you know? So I guess what I'm saying is I think it's okay to have a character in Ravenloft who's lost a leg and is embarrassed by it. But I understand why they're trying to revise that.
For me, and I actually have a lot of conversations with individuals about this, there seems to be an environment in which this sort of discussion or debate happens a lot in the RPG community, but not so much in the wargaming community.
Yeah, the RPG community can be very divisive, and that's one of the things I hate about it. But it is what it is. Eventually, I hope that'll go away, because it's just wrong. I mean, especially towards people who are transgender. I mean, Paizo did include a transgender character as one of their iconics in first edition, and that raised a lot of just negative things from people who didn't like it.
Yeah, and I'm always going to be, I'm going to fall in the inclusivity camp. I'm never going to have a problem with including more of our real world, you know, into our gaming world, like ever. And I'm not sure why people rail against that type of thing. You know, it's like there were some miniatures released recently of some fantasy type adventurers in a wheelchair. You know,
I was just thinking that.
I'm not going to rail against that. I'm like, cool, just okay.
Yeah,
right
in
on.
fact, I watched this guy Tetsubo on YouTube, and he says, well, think about how you can imbue those items with magic, and how someone with a disability in a wheelchair could be so much faster than someone without a wheelchair.
Right. And then if you in real life are in a wheelchair, you there's part of you now that's like, I'm being represented. And I'm going to be always about that, you know? I'm never going to ever have a problem with that. And I don't know why people fight it so much. It's like, no, I don't want you to be in my game. Like, why?
Yeah, that goes back to when I did one of my first jamming sessions. I had wizards wearing armor, right? And when my player found out, he's like, I'm out.
What was his reason?
He's so OSR and thinking old school that he didn't want it.
I have a similar story, actually, Princess. So I've been GMing a long freaking time. I've been writing a long time. I'm not a young person. And it gets to a point where you need to be a little bit different in your world setting, or you need to start thinking a little bit differently about your characters that you're developing. And you start to entertain all sorts of weird and wonderful things. Myself, I got to a point where I'm like, I want to play a goblin. I'm going to play a goblin. And I can make this work. And he's going to be a horrible, crass little thing that eats his own snot. But he will be, ultimately, he's a wizard. And he's capable of casting spells, and he was a fun character. I had a player literally go, why do you want to play a goblin? Goblins are evil. You can't. A goblin? And I literally broke his brain. And all I said at the table is, I didn't want to play goblin. That's all I said. And I could see his brain literally go, kink. And he just could not get his thoughts around it at all. And that's not a weird thing, you know? And so that same player probably would be one of those guys that has a hard time with a transgender what now? It's like, come on, dude, what the hell?
Who cares? If you don't like it, don't use it. Big deal.
Mm-hmm.
No, exactly.
As long as you're not being forced by anyone, and I don't think anyone should be forcing their beliefs or views on anyone else, no matter what it is, just don't do it. Big deal. It's there for those who need it and want it, and people who want to support it, let them support it. Let them be involved with it. And if you don't, you can feel what you feel and think what you think, but you don't need to let it out in the world, and just do your own thing. Why is that hard for people?
That's what I'd like to know.
I have such a hard time with this. Like, I want to know why. And I don't get it.
And I don't either. I genuinely don't. I think we're all
that is what
spirits
breaks
here.
my brain. Why not just think that way? I mean, how freaking hard is it?
As long as I'm not harming you in some capacity, right? What do you care what I'm doing over here? Like, you. In fact, you should be happy that I'm happy. I'm going through life satisfied and smiling inside, and that's all I want. Okay, I just want people to be happy, and I get that there's a lot of people in this world that aren't, and I'm empathic to that, and I really wish they were. But it's like, I'm certainly not going to say, I don't like that, so I'm going to affect your life in a negative way because I feel you shouldn't be able to drive a white car, fucker. And it's like, why? Why are you going to come at me, bro? So it's like, I think we're all agreed on that one. It's like, just let people be. Let them live their life. Just let them smile.
Yeah. Yeah,
Not
some
hard.
people can't.
Not hard. And yeah, so you mentioned earlier too how the wargaming community doesn't suffer from this as much, and
it doesn't seem it to me. I'm sure it's there, but it doesn't seem as visible.
I don't think it does, and I'm gonna say probably because wargaming is not as big. It's big in certain parts of the world, like it's freaking huge in England, but it still doesn't suffer from the same infighting in the same way. You've got rules lawyers and different types of rules, people that are going to fight. They're gonna pull out glaives and go at each other over what rules to use, right? But that's different. You get that all over the world. But yet the RPG community, the tabletop RPG community, and honestly, even the computer game community, they seem to like to fight each other all of the time. Oh, you got a PlayStation? I got a PC. Well, I got an Xbox. You know, it's like, who gives a fuck? Are you playing games and having fun? And it's like, and it's the same. I think the RPG world is suffering a little bit from the influencers or the perceived influencers, where their voice has become one of finding fault within the system, within the hobby. And that's their brand. That's what they've got. And I see a lot of that where if my brand is posting stupid pictures and historical pictures all of the time. That's my brand, right? I love history and I'm going to vomit history all over you, whether you like it or not, every single freaking day. That's who I am. But if my brand was, I need to find fault within the wargaming community, I'm going to pick on that one, then I now need to find fault within it. I need to start finding people that are, not nice to other people, or guys that are not nice to women. And when I run out of those, I now need to start finding other things. I need to, because this is my brand. This is what I post every single day. And now I need to find something maybe within the rules that are wrong. And if I can't find something within the rules, then I need to find something about the setting. Are you doing a battle that is fighting Muslims? Are you anti-Muslim? And that's where I think the RPG community is suffering, because I think there's too many people like that. I think they need to find a problem.
I can say that that's probably true, Alyssa, because there's I got involved with this community on YouTube about movies, and believe me, that community is very fractured as well, especially within the Star Wars. Don't get me started on that because you know all about that. But this one guy who drove me off of YouTube, well, he thinks he drove me off of YouTube, but pretty much that's what it is. I mean, people finding fault with whatever they want to find fault with.
I think some people find identity in that, right? So you brought up Star Wars, so let's stick with Star Wars. Some people didn't like the last 3 movies. Okay, some people did. Some people hated the prequels. Some people liked them. And at the end of the day, though, people can't just leave it like that. And you can, if we take a step backwards for a moment and go, did you see Jack Reacher? Oh, yeah, I did, but I didn't like it. No one fights over that. They go, oh, okay, I actually kind of liked it. Done. The conversation is done. And yet when it comes to these almost, I'm going to use the word cult-like followings, it's like you have to form a tribe. You have to be in a particular tribe. And I think some people identify themselves that way. It's like, my identity is I didn't like the prequels. Ergo, if you did, you're in a different tribe and I hate you. And it's like, that's my identity. That's who I am. And they go off with a banner in hand to fight that fight. And it's like, out of all of the fights in the world to have, that's the one you picked right now?
And you know what's really stupid about it is the fact that the people who hated the prequel trilogy originally, and they now hate the new trilogy, but love the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
And I personally can watch them for whatever they are and get some enjoyment or not out of the different ones, whether they're a prequel or the recent ones or whatever. Am I entertained? I'm entertained.
Yeah,
and that's all
I care about.
Yeah. So it's like, this is a bit of a non sequitur in a way, but you know, if we're talking about passionate nerds and stuff, CD Projekt Red, Cyberpunk. Cyberpunk delayed. So okay, let me take a step backwards. CD Projekt Red is like the messiah in the game publishing world. Generally speaking, everyone would give their firstborn child to CD Projekt Red. Jonathan, disagree with me if you want to, but
no, I think you're right, and I think Mike Pondsmith should be very grateful that they're doing a video game of his property.
Oh, 100%. I'd love to talk to Pondsmith one day about that. But it's like, so CD Projekt Red is literally Jesus in everyone's eyes. CD Projekt Red delays the game for the second or third time, something like that. Now, I had disappointment. I did. And I'm on record for, oh, man, really? But it was more that I had built real world schedules around it than the game being delayed. People were writing in wanting CD Projekt Red developers to be killed. They wanted them to be murdered. They were like, you should be murdered. You should be killed in your bed. It's like, at what point does a human being get that passionate about something where they want death and destruction on others? What the fuck is that about? It's just a game.
People
and
are
it's
delusional.
like, so, it is. It is. So it's like, look, I can get you being like upset. I can get like you having a great deal of disappointment. But now you're going to turn that around and actually wanted to inflict harm. And there's a lot of it out there. And it's like, come on.
That goes for any community, because even actors and actresses have left Twitter over death threats.
Right. But because they were in the recent trilogy of Star Wars. Because they were in it. You know?
Well, even a few of the Twilight actors, for what I know, left social media because of the hatred for those movies.
What is it about humankind where we just need to continually find another tribe to fight? I personally feel we're a tribal creature, like we're a pack creature, and we need to find our pack to be in, and we need to find other packs to fight. It's just, it seems to be that's the way we are as humans. We can't see you at all. You're like the invisible man. That was a ninja move.
There's no one there.
No, but I mean, it's a weird thing, isn't it, about our various hobbies where that goes on. And to Jonathan's earlier point, you don't see it much in wargaming. You really, really, really don't.
And yet it's funny with you talking about death threats, because I've been on the receiving end of that.
Under what context?
I don't remember the specifics because it's been quite a few years, but I've received death threats for something or other I talked about on the show once.
What the hell?
I know, right?
Wow. I didn't realize that.
Showed up one day from, I don't remember who, saying that you're going to send people up to kill me and murder my wife and my kids. And I mean,
Did
it
you say
wasn't
something bad about the red grass palette or something?
yeah, it must have been
What
them.
the hell?
We're going to send someone from France to go and get you and leave stinky cheese in your fridge that you're going to have to eat in bean form.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously wasn't of such a level that I involved the police or whatever, but like contacted all my ISP people for them to track down. And so I am extra careful now about what I put out there.
And so the weird thing is, so I've never ever been on the receiving end of a death threat, and I hope that I never am. But there's a huge amount that I never say publicly, because I know that it would start to fan flames of folks, and it's not what I want to be. I don't want to start getting into, I guess, that division. I want to be a unifying force in this world, if anything. So there's a huge amount that I don't say, and both of you could probably appreciate that. But I don't even wade into those waters. But what I will say, though, on the wargaming front, if I'm going to get back to wargaming, Jonathan, that I used to run or be part of the Enfilade convention, where we would have hundreds of games going over a weekend. And those games could span fantasy, futuristic, skirmish, mass battle, historical, ancient, historical, Napoleonic, modern, whatever. It could be named. No one ever walked around pouring scorn on the rule set that you were using or the game that you were running. There was just none of that, like that we see in other hobbies. And I don't know, that maybe there's got to be something within that historical mindset that's less judgmental.
I tend to look at the demographic, and with a thing like wargaming, I see a more homogenous demographic in many areas, and I think it's more diverse in other hobbies, and I think therein lies the issue, where it ends up being so diverse in other areas that there ends up being a lot of differences of opinion. So when something is more homogenous, I think the worst you might get is, well, I don't think I'd use that rule to represent this, whatever. But they're not like, you must die because you want to use that rule for whatever thing.
I think a big portion of why people are being so divisive is because of the body positivity movement. I mean, you see people who are overweight and happy, and people are like, what the fuck? They lose their shit over it because nobody should be fat in this other person's eyes. It's stupid. Just let people be who they want to be. Some people are born with a genetic disorder that forbids them from losing weight. How can they lose weight? So stop it.
So let me ask you. So I think that part of our modern world technology is actually definitely something that we're working through as a species. The ease of disseminating information is so easy to do. It's so easy to lap up that there is a huge mixture of truth and false in there that people are absorbing. And I think humankind needs, and we will work that out, but we're definitely in a period of evolution because of our technology that's going on. Do you think our technology will help us grow as people and as civilizations to be more inclusive? Or do you think that we're stuck as human beings being primal creatures?
Okay, there's a show called Continuum, and I know it's fiction, but the way technology is evolving, I can see it being a possible future. And in this show, they use cell phone towers to basically record real time everything that's happening. And this recording is virtually holographic. So you could rewind time with a certain device and then see exactly what happened when it happened. Basically eliminating the need for people to say, well, for creating like fake, what's it called? When
The deep fake?
establishing a fake alibi.
Oh, okay.
That's completely irrelevant in this future that I saw. So I see that as a possibility of happening. So even with the technology of the internet getting better, and realistically, like Jonathan said, looking at a person's internet provider and figuring out who they are faking to be in order to be hateful towards someone else, it's going to be a thing of the past, because eventually that technology is going to be so good that there's no getting away with it.
And see, I think it's going to be the exact opposite, which is really, I think this is a great topic of discussion. Someone should do a show on it. I think I get really worried about it, because I think a lot of the problems we have now can be directly traced to things like social media, the constant availability of technology. And I am very concerned about things like Big Brother, where I think this stuff can very easily be taken and misused, and be used to force all sorts of awfulness on all sorts of people. And it makes me really concerned about who controls all that and what checks and balances there are. I mean, it could be, right. It comes down to, is it a Star Trek future or not? And I think it's a not Star Trek future that we have with this. But it could absolutely be a Star Trek future where it's a utopia and we're all happy, and it's
the thing to remember about Star Trek, though, is that there was something similar to World War III, and it's sort of happening now, where not World War III itself, but the devolution of society. That actually happened in Star Trek history. Society had to de-evolve in order to re-evolve towards the accepting future that they have.
I do think we're in that de-evolving situation right now.
I do agree with that. So,
and I do think it's going to get worse, because these deep fake videos are going to start coming out where you have a politician's head and voice saying something completely that never happened. And you're going to have this huge volume of the populace believing it because they see it. I mean, how many people are reacting right now to it's on the internet, ergo it's true? And they do this, and it rails against my sensibility of intellect that they do this. So when they start seeing freaking videos, I think it's just going to get worse. And at some point, it's either then going to go in the Jonathan direction of Elysium, and it's just society's going to collapse, or we're going to have, it's got to explode, right? It's got to explode, and we'll snap back towards a Star Trek direction of utopia. And I hope it goes in this direction, but I'm scared witless right now, only because I see so much stupidity out there.
Yeah.
Well, those videos are already out there. I don't know if you saw, maybe a year or so ago, there was one of former President Obama, where it was all faked for him saying and doing stuff with his head and upper body, and it looked 100% authentic. And they were just doing it to show what you could do. And I thought, maybe you shouldn't. Just maybe you shouldn't.
And that is honestly the thing that I'm scared of the most right now. And I don't care what side of the political or religious spectrum you're on.
Makes no difference.
It's the people that are spreading the misinformation. That's what I'm scared of, because you're always going to have a part of the population that's going to latch onto it and say, here's a photo of it, and the photos are getting doctored left, right, and center, right? And here's a video of it. And that scares me, because I don't think that we are capable of a species right now from discerning truth from fiction.
Well, a lot of people can't be bothered, is really what it is. I think there's a lot of apathy, so they don't want to put the effort in to find out.
One of my golden rules is if I see a video on Facebook or something, and I don't care what the caption is, if it's trying to instill some kind of emotional reaction from me, particularly a negative reaction, my default state goes, yeah, right. That's my default state. And 9 times out of 10, if I go off and do some research, which can be simply man stabbing woman in London video or whatever it is, 9 times out of 10, I'll start getting results of, yeah, no, this happened in Ukraine in 1913, or whatever, and I'm going, okay, so the video's fake. The video's being misrepresented. But at least my default state is, yeah, right. It's like, who's trying to play me here? And there's too many people in the world that want to be played.
Mhm.
My wife works at a nearby university, and one of the things that she has to do the most with students is to try to show them how to critically evaluate sources for stuff. She does a lot with like research and that kind of thing. And time again, both undergrad and graduate students and people who are just really at high levels, they don't seem to get how to critically evaluate and how to just do the homework basically to make sure stuff is accurate. And so
that's a fascinating topic. That is a fascinating topic.
If people like that are having that kind of trouble, just imagine what your average everyday whoever is when they see something online or wherever or in the paper. Because I mean, like the papers do it too. The online everywhere, they're all have their slant and they're coming at you a certain way for stuff, but just try to figure out like why and where is this coming from and who benefits and how can I verify what's there. So if the people at that other level don't get it or aren't doing it, I don't expect most average people to do it either. And right. I think it's sad.
So what point, and this may be a topic for another day, but then at what point do you say that this should be moderated or someone needs to step in? Because that then starts to become government oversight of these channels, right? Mm-hmm. And that's when you start getting into what China does, where certain things just aren't even allowed into the country. And as much as I love our freedom of speech, I see the pit that we're throwing ourselves into with that. And it makes me look at China and go, I understand what you're trying to do here. And is there a happy medium between them, And that's, I think, where my fear starts to sit, is how do we manage free speech and this volume of information without ending up like China?
Well, I think the thing that we need to do is start taking a look at our laws and pass some kind of law that says you slander anyone and you can do time for it.
I agree with that. And so I'm not an expert on particularly American law, but there used to be in England that if you told a known falsehood or wrote about it, there was severe penalty. And there wasn't the bullshit when I was in England that you see nowadays. Now, England is a little bit like mini America. And they'll say any old shit and publish any old shit, and there seems to be no recourse. So clearly something has changed in their laws. There's no oversight committee. And I think that's one of the big problems with America right now is you could say anything, no matter how egregious or false, and there's zero recourse for it. And I think that's part of the problem.
I mean, the truth of that matter is look at the administration right now here in America. I mean, it says it all.
I think it's interesting because over here, there's such a wide berth for exceptions to that, where basically if anyone's considered a public person, you are exempt from that
100%.
Sort of stuff.
100%.
And so, for example, Alyssa, you could be considered a public person because of your streams in an odd way. So someone could come along and say awful, hateful, completely untrue things about you and then publish it and not a whole lot could be done. And the intention was really so that people could reveal truths about politicians for transparency, but it's been broadened so much that it's almost meaningless.
Right, and we've got to a certain point in society, right, where let's say someone does write completely made up things about me. They could say, well, I believe these to be true. Yep. Or my sources told me this, and I don't have to tell you my sources. And the sources don't even exist, so you just made it up. but they have plenty of protection for themselves. And someone like myself would be, but it's not true. And it doesn't matter. Now there's an alternative truth out there that is protected, you know, and you don't have to justify it. You don't have to prove it. It now just is.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the challenges that we face as a people, you know, as a world. I think we face this now.
Yeah.
Well,
and the other problem is the fact that we are governed by the rich. I mean, despite how we want to think, we are governed by the rich. And those who have the most money have the best lawyers. So if we wanted to take someone to court over something, it's a matter of how much money the other person has. If they have more than we do, we're going to lose.
Yeah. Yeah. Somewhere along the line, I think we lost our way. I think Fox News recently, I forget, Sean Hannity or someone like that, they were getting sued, and their lawyers managed to win the case by saying, look, the things we're saying are so ridiculous that no one could possibly take him seriously.
I remember that.
Case won.
I love that defense.
What do you mean? The things I'm saying are so ludicrous, so ergo no one could take this seriously. Yeah, you're right. So keep on saying them. What? And that's where we're at now as a society. And it's you know, honestly, both of you, as someone who came to the United States of America based upon watching so many American shows in the 80s, you know, the 70s and 80s, I am a prodigy of the American dream. I am. I chased the American dream. And I got to be honest with you, the American dream has been extremely good to me. And I love America and I love American people and everything about it. But what we have become, these problems that we have that grow like a little cancer within our system, I fret over these things almost daily, you know, because they're not, there's no easy fixes out there for them.
No, not so much.
A somber note at the end of this chat. I didn't intend for it to get so super serious, but, you know, I guess we just talk about whatever we want to talk about, right?
True. Very true.
Okay, let's talk about something more positive. Both of you, I really appreciate you giving me some ideas for the stream. I'm going to definitely take a look at trying to implement them before we actually start restreaming on Monday evening. So look for a little bit of that and start throwing beans at me, and maybe we'll have a little GIF of it, and maybe we'll have a close-up of me on the screen eating it too. I think that's something that's totally doable. And then the other life-saving tip for people that watch this one later is don't buy red grass games. So those are the two big things that we got out of this one.
Yeah, the jerks.
We're going to definitely do this every month, by the way. So I'm hoping that, you know, we can, and there's no obligation to join, but I'm hoping that we can just sort of get together and just chill and chat. I've really loved this opportunity that we've had right here because we don't get to do this on the stream. You type, I see it 7 seconds later. This is way more real.
Very true.
And Princess, it's really good to see you.
Thank you. Good to be here. I love doing this with my friends, whether it's on Twitch, you see my comment 7 seconds later and reply, or this is what I love the most. This is why I love hanging out with friends, because right now this is all there is.
You know, that's a really good observation. That's a really good observation. I don't do this with my friends anywhere near enough. And we should do it more. Like at the beginning of the pandemic, we would get together on Discord and we would chat and we would just hang out no matter what we were doing. And we've stopped doing that. So Princess, you're right. I actually am going to bring that up today with my friends later on and sort of say, we need to hang out more, even if it's just once or twice a week, you know, just to chill. So you're right. I actually feel I've got to get to know you both that little bit better than I ever have before. And Jonathan, Princess, I don't think you and I have ever chatted like this. Never, right? And Jonathan, I've got to meet you once in person, and we've never chatted like this, not for this length of time. And it was like a party going on and shit around us. This is way more real. So I really appreciate your time today, both of you.
No, thank you for doing this.
Believe
Well,
me,
we'll do it
I've been
more.
looking forward to this since it was announced. So I had a really good time today.
Awesome. Well, we're going to do it again. We're going to do it again next month. And next month's going to be right there in the holiday season. So I'm sure we'll be talking about that a little bit. All right, both of you, seriously, you're awesome supporters. I love you both very much, and I mean that from the bottom of my heart. I'm sure we'll start having a few more people join us on these monthly chats, but you two are my core girl and guy, okay? I love you both.
Love you too.
All right.
This was wonderful.
You have a great rest of your day and weekend, and I'll see you Monday night, right?
You too. Be well, everyone.
All right. Thank you both.
Okay. Bye.